Alaman.
Did that play for anybody?
Yeah.
Some of it ended.
Yeah.
I stopped it because I couldn't. It was not doing anything on my side. I couldn't see it moving, so I didn't know.
It's playing on YouTube side for me.
Oh well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever or whenever you may be. This is the overnight running off mobile, so everything's kind of wonky and a little slow. Yeah. So just bear with me for any technical difficulties. Tonight we've got DJ. How's it going, DJ?
Good evening. It's going well, man. Just came off of a Hot Off Hillbilly show. Before that, Brooks' Suicide Saturday show. So I've been rolling for several hours. Looking forward to several more. Thanks for having me.
And American Hillbilly Up. How you doing, Hillbilly?
How you doing, buddy? Oh, man, just having a good Saturday night. Glad to be on here with you folks.
Gizzard Gary, how you doing?
I am doing fine, thank you. Honored to be in the House of the Mouse. Thanks for the invite.
Oh, no problem. And Gun Websites, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for hosting.
And there wasn't a poll this week because I kind of forgot to put a poll up. And I don't have a topic because I couldn't really think of a topic. It's just kind of been that kind of week. I did finally take my Kimber 1911 out to the range and fired it, put 8 rounds through it, and the grips cracked, and so I put it away. But I can say I finally fired it. So I'll have to get new grips on it, or put the old grips back on it, and then get it back out to the range, and then get a few more rounds through it. But other than the grips cracking, it did fine. Took a friend out to the range who was in town from Nebraska. Let him pick out some stuff to shoot, and took the Ruger Super Blackhawk 44 Magnum and my Smith & Wesson CHP gun and the CZ 75 Compact.
Nice lineup, man.
And shot those. So I know it was fun. We weren't there very long, but he got to shoot some stuff he had never shot before. And then we met some other people, went out, had a nice lunch. So it was a good day. Kind of bummed about my grips. They're the ones I had laser etched, but I think it was user error. Is I think there's supposed to be a little O-ring that goes around the grip screws that I didn't know why they were there. And I think that's to cushion the grips a little bit. And I think that's because they cracked from where the screw hole is. So that's my guess, but I'm kind of new to 1911s. So I don't know. Well, we'll get some other grips and then, see if we can not crack those. And let's take a quick look to see who was out there. Rumble Vulcan, who I think might be Wesley Foster. I'm not sure. Kingpin was out there. He's probably asleep now. Sergeant Joe Smith. Hillbilly Up. Bubba Triclops Ballistics. Ozzy Osbourne. Meowing at the Moon. Gunpowder Beauty. Good evening. And Gun Websites doing a countdown. DJ out there in here, along with Gizzard Gary. And Ron Wayne Woods. Oh,
I was
Yeah.
actually just listing the number of people that still thought 9mm was a good idea, and it went down to 0 just earlier.
garage guys out there. And yeah, Rumble Vulcan is Wesley Foster. So good evening to everybody. And again, I don't really have a topic, so anything anybody wants to talk about, we can talk about. The comment period for the 2 comment periods for the ATF are going on. One of them's for the storage of black powder, and the other is the who needs to get an FFL. So if you have not commented, I forgot to put links in the description for that also. But if you haven't commented, go over there and comment. Be heard. It literally takes maybe 5 minutes, unless you want to leave a long comment. It might take longer, but it's really easy to do. And I think it's important, for the ATF to hear from gun owners. Anything they do, head of the ATF, if he scratches his ass, there should be a million gun owners looking at him, asking him what he's doing. That's my opinion.
And Foss, I dropped the links to the Federal Register pages for each of those I did that because I think it's important that people at least skim through what it is before they go to that comment page. Every little bit that you understand, I do believe, will make the comments that you leave perhaps improve. So, not trying to be the teacher and tell you what you all to do, but that's where you can start.
Thank you for doing that. So, what's everybody want to talk about? All right.
Still catching breath after
overnight is gun topics.
We can talk about whatever anybody wants to talk about.
Well, as long as it's not animals, we get enough of that from Bubba.
No doubt.
Wanamaker's next weekend. Guys are just going. Gun show.
That's right.
The largest gun show in the U.S.
Well, in the world, probably.
The world.
I would like to go at least once sometime, just to see it and experience it once.
It's a lot of fun. So I'd recommend going for at least a few days ahead of time, and then Tulsa shuts down on Monday for some reason. So a lot of stuff is closed on Monday. So if you are making plans to go, don't think like, oh, I'm going to stay an extra day and experience Tulsa, because like a lot of stuff is closed. It's crazy.
Do they run Tuesday through Saturday?
I guess. I mean, I just noticed a lot of gun shops were closed, and like if you thought a museum might be open, no, not necessarily. Like we close on Mondays for some reason.
Yeah, Monday dark. What in my experience, especially in food and beverage, because it's the most, it's the least, it's the day where they get the least amount of business. So a lot that would normally be able to support 7 days a week just kind of choose not to. I'd say in town here, they're probably maybe 5 to 10% of the restaurants. All the clubs and bars are still open 7 days though. I don't know anybody that shutters on Mondays.
I don't. There's motorcycle shops will sometimes close on Monday, so they can be Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah, so they can be open on the weekend.
Yeah,
That kind of smaller shops, I get it, but I don't know if it's a religious thing or if it's a farm thing. But anyway, I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff to do in Tulsa, so it's worth, if you're going to go to the show and you're making a trip anyway, there's at least 2 awesome museums and then tons of gun shops and then just interesting things to do in Tulsa also.
J.M. Davis is one of those museums. What is the other one, G-Webs?
It's called Woolarock, and it's some oil guy. Is it Phillips 66 oil guy?
Yes, it is.
He had a bunch of land and he put critters on it. And then there's a museum there where I think it was like his family's place, and then it turned into a museum after he passed, and then now it's like a nature center / museum. So you go to, and it's not just a gun museum; it's a museum of the West, I guess, and oil and some of the other things of his interest, his collections and stuff. And you go through. I mean, I know there's buffalo, and there's probably some kind of those
Elk
African creatures, antelopes and stuff. But and then peacocks and maybe like longhorn. I don't know. There's a whole lot of critters. It's pretty big, and you go through. It's one of those places where you drive through all that. So as you're driving, like there's a buffalo standing there and ostrich, and then you get to the museum, and then on the way out, you're going to drive through. Is it 2 miles in and 2 miles out? It's some amount of
That
miles.
sounds about right. And they don't have that fenced in. They could be right out on the road. It happens.
Yeah. So you'll like stop because of buffalo standing there. So it's and on the way out, you get to do that too. So it's pretty neat. And back in the day, it's cool because it was like the family's place. They were just super rich and they had this place. So there's like the pool where the lake where they would swim in, and like the cool, I don't know what to call it. Like, I guess you'd call it like the changing rooms, but like a little, it's bigger than a shed, but not a whole building.
Cabana.
Yeah, I guess there's like a name for that. You know how like when the pool would have been your whole thing to do, like, and you have 1 million people over, you're going to need a place to change. There's probably bathrooms in there, but so like elaborate, but not like open to the public, but you know, right on the edge of that. Anyway, so pretty elaborate for old people type of sprawl. I don't know, spread. What do you call it? Like, you know, ranch. It's not a ranch. I don't know what to call it. An estate, I guess.
That would work. So have you done a video or any content on that one?
Yeah, maybe in 19. I don't remember what year I got up there. Gizzard got up there a year before me, I think.
Right. Gizzard Gary, do you have content about that place?
About Woolarock?
Yeah.
I might have some still shots. I don't believe I have any video.
So it's a museum of this guy's like collections and stuff, and he cared about the native stuff that was going on before they came in and trashed it with oil and whatnot. And because you know Oklahoma was where they stuck a whole shit ton of Indians whenever they were still chopping up the rest of the West. So there was a lot of history to that area when he decided to sit down and make oil or whatever. Or I shouldn't say it like that. He got his oil somewhere else. He bought that area, chopped it out, and said, no one's going to screw with this from now on. And then he went to archive, you know, his collections of baskets and art and different things. And the different kind of oil wells and stuff is all there. So the gun collection, I think there was like his gun collection, but then they acquired some person's gun collection, and it's essentially like a massive Colt collection. So it's almost exclusively, it's all Colts. I don't think it's, man, I don't know. Do you know, Gizzard? It's not every Colt, I don't think. I mean, it's kind of close, but
I don't remember, but it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole room of Colts, but it's not probably every Colt ever made, but it's some rich guy who decided to buy like a lot of Colts, and that collection is on display there. So I don't even think it's Woolarock's collection. I know it's not Woolarock's collection; it's somebody else's collection, but that is where it's located. So anyway, and it's kind of nice. And getting there is, you know, a good portion of the adventure. Is it 2 hours out of Tulsa? An hour? It's at least an hour.
Yeah, it's up by Bartlesville, so about an hour.
And it's going through like little towns in Oklahoma, which are kind of unique. You know, like they're little farm towns, I guess, mostly.
Yep.
That's
what's
where
Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma. That's all cow pastures. I don't know. It's an interesting kind of little cow or farm country. You know, it's not soybeans and corn like up north. It's different kind of farm country.
Now, they do have Air and Space Museum up there. It's pretty cool, but I don't know if they're open like Monday.
Oh, that might have been one of the other things that we never got to see, because it was by the airport.
I think it might be over there that direction.
I think that might have been one.
Yeah, it's over by the airport. I remember.
So I remember one year we were all there for Wanamaker, and bunch of people stayed for Monday, and then we were all looking at each other like, "Dang it, there ain't a dang thing we can do except go eat." Like, like saying this restaurants are open, but most of the, what would you call them, attractions weren't, and quite a few of the shops weren't. I think that surplus store wasn't even open, right? And like Shooter's World isn't open.
Yeah,
Also, kind of odd. Maybe they're present. Maybe it's because they want to have a presence at Wanamaker itself. But it's kind of odd. During Wanamaker, they wouldn't be open. I mean,
Oh no,
people.
no. This is the town. This is like people don't do stuff on Monday. I don't know.
Damn.
Maybe because they do
Weird.
so much at church in Oklahoma that they the day off.
Got to rest up after churching it up.
What's the name of
I
that
think-
church? There's a giant church in Tulsa, dude. I'm not even kidding. Like one of the
Yeah.
giantest churches is in Tulsa, so they may literally spend so much effort on Sunday that they have
You
to.
talking about there at Oral Roberts University? And
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
is that?
I don't think
you
they
got,
part around with religion there, and maybe even football. I don't know. I think it
you
might
got
just
the
be something
Rama campus and all that. But I think what a lot of it has to do is being tourist, or well, I don't know about Tulsa being a tourist area, but I know around here, since a lot of businesses are open on the weekend, it's pretty. I mean, you'll see stuff close either Sunday, Monday, or Monday and Tuesday a lot.
Yeah, it's a model that I don't see that often. Wonder if it's going to increase over time.
blue. I think it's going away. I haven't seen it very often either, and I traveled quite a bit recently. So, last couple of years. So Sergeant Joe Smith saying the museum in Berrysville. So that one is awesome. I was there also, and then didn't go in there. But next time I go to Tulsa, I'm definitely making the trip to Berrysville for that museum. It's the Saunders Museum.
I need to correct you on that. Here locally, we call that Burrville.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's 30 minutes from me. It is a great museum, though. Yep. Everybody around here calls it Berryville.
You're in Missouri or you're in Arkansas?
I'm in Missouri, but Arkansas is only 6 miles to the south of me, the line.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, our school is right on the line on the Missouri side.
So have you been to not Bass Club, not the Bass Pro museum or nothing, but there's a Bass Pro shotgun shooting place. I think it's in Arkansas, or else it's in Missouri right there.
Yeah, it's right on the line over there by Big Cedar and the golf course and all that. But
Is that open to the public? Is that something people can go to?
yeah, I think it is. You just have to remember everything Bass Pro is expensive. Anything they have to do with. But
It looks like super fancy. It looks like a resort version of a shooting sports place.
yeah, their Dogwood Canyon Nature Park, that like 3,000 acres. My grandpa owned that, so I grew up on all that land.
Sergeant
Oh.
Joe Smith says he's in Bentonville and he's wondering where you're at.
Oh, yeah, I'm up here by Cameron City area, just across the line. But yeah, I'm really familiar with Bentonville.
You ever go to Lake of the Ozarks?
I know we have our own. We have a different lake here, Table Rock Lake, and down there where Sergeant Joe's at, they have Beaver Lake, and so Beaver runs in. It used to all be the White River, run all the way to Mississippi. So they started damming it up. So Beaver is in Arkansas, and it runs into Table Rock Lake. Table Rock runs into another lake, and so it is all a deal for like not only tourists and stuff like that, attractions for water sports, but also for hydroelectricity in our area. This stuff was started back in the 50s.
There's a drive-through game farm up here, up in Squim on the peninsula of Washington. It's back in the 60s and 70s. They provided the animals for a lot of the Disney movies, TV shows. And they had
I feel like I'd move if I had to go around saying, "Oh, I'm from Squim."
well, and it's spelled Sequim, but pronounced Squim. But I remember as a kid, grade school, we went up there, and then they showed us like those giant foam boulders and stuff they use in the movies. And
Did you get to pick one up? Act like you're Hercules or whatever?
I didn't, but they picked them up and then showed it to us. And we've been up there a few times since, and you can, bring a loaf of bread and feed the animals as you drive around. They have a rhino there too in a pen.
You would think
last
that
time we were
bread
up there,
would be like the worst thing to feed animals, unless
I
it's
don't know,
like some kind of grain, whole grain type of bread or something.
because you can buy bread from them or just bring your own.
Wow.
And the grizzly bears will sit along the fence line and wave at you to get you to throw bread at them.
Damn.
And it's the amazing thing is they're so big, and you wing a slice of bread at them, and they move their paw, and they're not moving real fast, but they'll hook it with their claw. And it's just like no effort for them to grab it.
I'd wing them like a T-bone or something. Everybody else is winging them bread. You wing them the T-bone. They're going to like you better than everybody else.
But they've got buffalo and reindeer, the rhino, groundhogs. They've got tigers, wolves, and I can't remember what else. Some other stuff, but it's interesting to go up there and see, and then kind of interact with them. We had I rolled down my son's window so he could give the bison a piece of bread, and he started, he got scared, and then the bison started nudging the car to get him to give him the bread. And I'm like, give him the bread, and he's panicked, so I just grabbed it, threw it out so it stopped hitting the car. Michael Dunn's out there. Good evening.
Yeah, some friends of mine down in Arkansas, they have a herd of buffalo, and their fence is, I want to say, 7 foot tall. Like the posts are 6x6 oak, and then really heavy duty fencing. Those buffalo will like rub up against it to like scratch their back or whatever.
Yeah.
And you'll see that fence just kind of going back and forth. And you're like, oh my goodness. But they're not aggressive enough to try to break through it,
Gunpowder Beauty said she'd love to have a wolf, but that's a firm no from Tardot. There's a real close to here. There's Wolf Haven. It's rehabilitation for wolves, and the two guys that started it, I kind of know one of the guys, and he was kind of telling me how they started it. Was his friend had a hybrid wolf, so it was part wolf, part regular dog, and he started a sanctuary for kind of the hybrids, and then started getting wolves, and ended up, I don't know if he sold it to somebody else, and then now it's a rehabilitation or preserve center, whatever it is. And he was saying, yeah, it used to be we'd let you come up and pet the wolves and stuff, and they'd come up on the fence. And we went up there, took the tour, and it's kind of interesting to see them, but they all look malnourished, and it's nothing exciting. And they're all volunteers, so the volunteers don't really know what they're talking about if you're giving the tour.
Well, I don't know if anybody else thought this, but as soon as you said hybrid wolf, I was thinking like half robot or something.
Yeah, there's a kind of nice. Oh, good cartoon reference, man. There's a drive-through safari thing out west of town here, and they also have wolves and bison They also do some waterfowl, more, they do a lot of birds. Like there's a bald eagle sanctuary thing that's out there. They have like pelicans and other ones that can live in Nebraska, which is a little bit nutty. But yeah, the eagle aviary is pretty damn cool. Like they are such a majestic animal, like a bird, whatever however you want to define. Incredible.
They are watching them. Where I used to, the little mill pond that I used to fish at, we'd get, sometimes you get bald eagles, and usually it would be the hawks, big hawks. And they're really neat to watch, but the closer you get, the scarier they are.
Mm-hmm.
When you get up close, they're huge.
Yeah. Like my experience, like the experience I've enjoyed the most, two of them with bald eagles. One, when I was living on Vancouver Island, I was driving a couple of older timber roads, whatever, and one, something was over my van, and I had a big ass van, and I just kind of like saw a shadow or something. I'm losing track of exactly how I first felt it, but then just ahead of me, wings open. The wingspan, it was wider than not only wider than my van, but it felt like it was like 2 feet on either side of my van. Thing was like 6 foot wingspan on that thing. I'd never been that close to a bird that big, and that was just amazing. I was lucky to see. I don't know if it was a mother or a father eagle teaching a younger one how to fish. And like to see, it was like a wildlife program or something, Animal Planet or some damn thing. It was freaking amazing. And
So
yeah,
when the wings open, where they're electric guitars,
yeah, man, that'd be cool though. Yeah, I was shocked. I had no idea what was coming, and there it was.
Michael Dunn said, my mother's boyfriend had a couple hybrids. One was mean to everybody but him. It finally turned on him. And the other always broke out of the cage and killed neighbor animals and cows.
Yeah.
That's why they're banned in a lot of places.
Yeah.
I'm teaching this little dog to act the same way as a wolf, and then I'm going to go track down one of the ones that's loose in Arizona, and I'm going to swap out the neck thing with this dog so that this little dog will go out into the woods and emulate a wolf, and then I'll take that other wolf, the real wolf, back home and teach it to be a dog. I got it all planned out.
You gonna teach a wolf to be a pug?
No, just to be a puppy, just to hang out and chill. And then this little pug will emulate the wolf out in the wild. He'll run around with that neck collar on, acting like a wolf with the rest of the wolves.
Have you seen? There's a guy that I've seen. He's seen some of the shorts he's done. I don't know if it's a rehabilitation or a zoo or whatever, but he's in with the wolves and kind of talking while he's petting them, and the wolves can't do anything but really growl, and it is kind of the nightmare deep growl kind of horror movie, but they're not being, that's the only way they communicate. I'm happy, rah! I'm sad, rah!
Wow.
I've heard wolves. They kind of make like a noise, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, we only have coyotes around here.
Yeah,
Coyotes are cool. I can listen to coyotes all night.
We'll get, there haven't been a lot this year. Past couple of years, it gets pretty loud out there. And then you'll hear like a pack over here yipping it up. And then, a mile away, you can hear another pack calling back.
Yep.
Just because we around here, and I know other places do, we have to hunt them and keep the population down because of the killing of livestock and just pets.
Yeah.
But most coyotes, what people call it like a pack. Now they do have bigger packs, but from what I've seen around here, most usually it's 3 coyotes, and they sound like there's 8 or 10. But coyotes are very smart as far as with stuff, you know what they do and stuff. They've even they will, for instance, if there's an outside dog or something, say it might be at night or whatever, 2 of them will wait in the tree line or the dark. One will go up and entice the dog to chase him. And then as soon as that dog hits that tree line, there's 3 of them on him. And they do some pretty clever stuff.
The end of the intro for the overnights, you can hear the coyotes howling. Just went outside in the backyard, and that's audio from my backyard.
Wow.
Yeah, living in the city, I don't have many opportunities to run into other, like who's the apex predator kind of thing, or like mammal carnivores. Everything in the city is like smaller animals, of course. But like as far as some of the other like coyotes, that sort of thing, I know that Pat in the Bunker has issues with them the same way. And I wouldn't have thought that, some of the animals that are in Nebraska now would have migrated in during my lifetime. I've been surprised by some of that.
Well, they were there already,
Totally.
so all they were is massacred before to make farms or whatever. But
Repopulating.
out here, they just hang out in the desert and whatever. And at night, they come in the dry washes, the creeks essentially, and they'll come in and hang out and do whatever they feel like because the town's theirs. There's but other stuff like pigs, javelinas out here, roadrunners, coyotes, everything like all the critters will run in at night. Because think about it, all the food waste and just stuff laying around that's food for them or stuff for them to sniff or whatever. For the coyotes, it's all them stray cats and pigeons and everything else. So they come in and feast all night, and then they book out of here in the morning when the garbage trucks start going around and whatever. At least that's how it is out here. And so even in the city, you do drive around at night, you can see a javelina walk around the middle of city street. And
Whoa!
It'll just book
Really?
out of here in the summer. Yeah.
Wow.
All the time. And we're not a small town. I mean, we're even in Phoenix, that kind of stuff can happen because those critters will just use the washes as highways.
Interesting.
But I'm assuming you have something like a creek or a river or something that the critters can use as access, that not have to walk down the streets. It's like get a bear every once in a while or a mountain lion in the middle of town. At least that's how I figure that happens. Maybe they get in the back of a truck or something.
Hitch a ride.
Take an Uber.
We have cougars and black bears in the area.
I think
So
mostly
weird.
beers at the bar.
People
No doubt.
post videos of
Me
them.
too.
But if you have a game cam or outside security cameras, you'll be surprised what walks through your yard at night sometimes that you never will know.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I mean, it really is amazing.
Just like stray dogs and stuff. And then every once in a while, somebody will walk around in your backyard. You'll be like, what the heck?
Yeah, but we're in the country, but I mean, I got on film, bucks and does, or just about any type of animal, and that will catch on the cameras that you're inside the house watching TV and you have no idea they're out there.
Hillbilly, I'm sorry if I'm confused, but wasn't there a story that you had about something that was coming onto your property and you used the game cameras to triangulate where they were kind of thing?
Yeah, it was the coyotes, yeah.
I'd like to do is get a bunch of game cameras and then put them out and see what all you could find, because you don't have to put them by your house. You can go find some place, just put them on a tree, like out here on a cactus or a bush or something, and then go back and grab them after a week or whatever.
I put one behind our fence. There's a ditch. There our fence, and then there's I don't know about 4 feet, and then there's a 6 foot deep ditch. And there's the path back there behind the fences and stuff. And I put a cam back there to see, and it was mainly raccoons, cats,
Yeah.
mice.
It'll pick up mice going by.
Yeah, it's real fast. You know, they'll kind of get to the brush, but you'd see them kind of.
But
They
even
jump.
that small of a thing is enough to trigger the motion sensor and start recording.
Yeah, that and birds, little birds and stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
and I mean, if you have a place that you're setting up like that, Webs, you can literally where the camera can see it, drop a little bit of cat food or corn or something, and you'll really see some activity then.
Oh yeah, bring them in. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
I have a lot of friends that use those for scoping out like their deer. Yeah, they have that deer stand here kind of thing, and they'll throw out salt blocks and other stuff to draw them in. I want to add this. I've had this like kind of tension in myself about how it's not whether or not it's humane kind of thing, but taking some of the sport out of hunting, I think, is providing food for the animals to come into, particularly that, which is processed. It's like you're not leaving corn out for them. A lot of them will put out some other kind of stuff. I don't know if it's Alpo or whatever the hell it is, but it always kind of felt like cheating.
Well, half the time when people are putting out food, it's to give the critter like, vitamins and minerals so that they are healthier to eat them, or just healthier.
I'm not saying it's not, it's an intelligent way to hunt. I'm granting that.
And what you're talking about, dude, if you're talking about a bunch of deers that hang out next to like soybean fields or corn fields, that ain't hunting. That's getting rid of deers that are messing with your soybeans and your corn. Like if you're talking antelope in the middle of whatever, living their whole lives, and maybe they see a game control person to give them a tag once in a while, but you got to stalk them for like 2 days and like crawl up on your belly. That's hunting. But sitting in a deer stand,
I think he's talking more
population.
baiting.
Well, even that, like baiting. So what? So you bring in the big deers and, decide which ones you're going to cull or whatever from the giant herd that lives next to your cornfield. Like, I don't have any problems with that. If you go out in the middle of the Wyoming, and I don't know, Wyoming's too many public. If you go out in the middle of like some wild, some wilderness area and you throw carcasses out and attract something, that's messed up. That's cheating. Because that's a critter that's normally living its life. But I think if you're defending your corn, or if you're just, you're going to pull out all these deer anyway, so you're trying to get the big one so you get the horns off it or the antlers off it, I don't have any problem with that. Or I don't have a problem with the farms in Texas where people put their own critters on there and go out and hunt them on their own property either. I mean, I don't know if that's the same or not, but I don't have problems with that kind of stuff. That's not really hunting, but who cares? I mean, you're just, otherwise the corn gets ate.
Yeah. In most states, it's illegal to bait like deer and turkey up like at season or up to season. Most usually there's so many days prior to opening seasoning that you cannot bait anymore, as far as, if it's salt licks, corn, or whatever the case might be. But there's been studies. I've seen a few of them where they've had some feeders and like they noticed like their wild turkey, actually for some reason was not populating and stuff like it should, because they were just hanging out waiting for the feeders to kick on. And like, I don't know, it was kind of, it surprised me on the study, I guess.
Well, that would be a little bit different for me. Birds or something, like I could care less about a turkey, honestly, but turkeys aren't out there eating all your corn. Like I don't know, I guess I can see where DJ's talking like for turkey or a bear or something that ain't eating your corn. I was thinking more of like pest hunting or whatever that's called. Pest control.
Population control.
Yeah. But where I was really talking about baiting for the camera, because I was actually happy to hear that a mouse can do it. Because what I've been wanting to do is figure out how to get cameras to check out all the little lizards that run around out here. Because I'm not quite used to them yet. I didn't grow up out here, but we can get lizards that can be like half a foot long, easy, just running around in our backyards and stuff. So, and they're super quick. You know how lizards are. As soon as you see them, they run away. So if I could have a camera out there filming them and throw some crickets or something out there to bait that, I think that'd be neat just to see, what kind of stuff really lives in my backyard underneath all the plants and stuff.
Yeah, one of the when I bought the game camera, I did it so I could put it under the house because we were getting mice in the crawl space. So I wanted to see what was going on. And yeah, when the traps go off, because it's too fast for the camera to catch. So you'll see the mouse come up just as it's going to set off the trap, and then you see it basically flipped over. But yeah, the mouth itself, it was, it picked up fine. And I think it probably would depend too on where you put it, because mine were, when I put it behind the fence, I had it set maybe 2 feet above the ground, 1.5 feet. If if it was set up like 6-8 feet, it might not.
Yeah, pointing down from a tree, like it wouldn't trigger it from there.
Then if you want it, I took the little electrical cutoff, the boxes for electrical cutoff, so that you can lock. I took one of those, cut out where the camera is, so that I could lock it. So sometimes the kids will get back, neighborhood kids will go back, play in the ditch back there, just so nobody will mess with the camera.
So it just looks like an electric box on the fence or something.
Well, yeah, I didn't, you can tell there's a camera in there because, I cut out so the camera and the IR lights, but they can't just, grab the camera if it was strapped to something. Gunpowder Beauty said we would plant clover and corn and peanuts, and we would feed them all year and hunt 3 months. We can't pour corn out as bait, but you can plant things like that. It's a loophole in some states. And hog is open season in Texas. Yeah, I'm really glad that we don't have the hog problem that southern states do.
Yeah.
We don't have them. I don't think New Mexico has them either. I think that's just a Texas thing. Well, and then east of there.
You'd have to check with your state or whatever, but if you own a certain amount of acres, and sometimes it's not as big as what you would think, there is actual conservation money that they will give you to plant stuff like winter rye, or maybe build a pond and stuff like that for the wildlife.
That's one thing I'd love to have, is property big enough I could have my own pond, put fish in it to fish.
How big a pond are you talking about?
Oh, big enough to put fish to make fishing fun. Yeah.
So big enough for a boat?
Small boat, maybe.
So then how do you defend that lake? Is it on some kind of property where other people can use the lake, so everybody's got a chunk, or do you got to put a fence around the whole lake? How do you defend this lake?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I'm down for a pond, but I'm still not sure how big a pond needs to be like useful for growing some kind. There's got to be some kind of water food you can get out of there, like water vegetable out of a pond. I just don't know what it is, but something. And then maybe even lettuce or something I just don't know about. And then have fish, so that you've seen the things where they have like the fish and the plants, and then the water.
The hydroponics.
Well, but the fish are part of it. I forget what it's called when there's the whole system. Yeah. But then you can get the tapie or whatever kind of fish, and then now you've got like a system of fish where you know what I mean, like where it's enough for a family to pull out of there and not ruin your fish keep going, and it's a large enough thing of fish, kind of like chickens. You have it large enough that it sustains. Anyway, that's what I think would be a good sized pond. I just don't know how big that pond needs to be. If that's something you put in a greenhouse so that you wouldn't have to worry about somebody coming and finding it or getting it, and then you keep all your moisture. Like here in Arizona, would that be good to keep all our moisture in there? I don't know. Nobody does that, so I don't know if it's a common thing.
I don't know.
But I know in Florida, people put their swimming pools inside all the time because of the mosquitoes. So it's a common thing to have your swimming pool inside in Florida, and just turn that swimming pool into a pond. And that would be, if you had a swimming pool, or if you had a pond the size of a swimming pool, that's not unreasonable. That would fit in the backyard. And would that be big enough to run a number of fish that you'd be able to eat?
Well,
There's
here,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, DJ.
I was just say around here, farm ponds, it's at least an acre. So, and that's able to support some species, and yeah, there's a conversion rate for the size, and the support
Like
versus
ratio, right?
Ratio. There you go. Thanks.
Now, is that for so that we have water to feed the crops, or is for the food for the critters, or is that just so you haven't, that's
just
much land anyway? You might as well throw an acre as a lake.
Yeah, that's more the case. If they don't exist naturally, or if there isn't a pond there, you can make one. And no, it's not. They don't use that. At least in my experience, they don't use it for any sort of irrigation source or anything. I mean, it's a closed system.
But it's probably like what Hibbley's saying. Like the Corps of Engineers probably came along and said, "Hey, everybody that puts an acre big lake in your property, here's some incentive," right?
Oh yeah, and for hunting animals too. It's too. I don't know if there is a bounty in any states or whatever. Hillbilly chime in on hogs, but there have been a couple of species that you could hunt, like prairie dog relatives or whatever here in Nebraska, where when my dad was growing up, there was a bounty, and you just strung them, and that was about it. Brought them in, and you got your 10 cents or whatever. So
Mike just said about. Oh, go ahead.
Well, in this area and stuff, I've dug a lot of ponds, been excavating and stuff for so many years. People will either use them for water for their livestock, sometimes irrigation, depending on what the deal is. But most usually, rule of thumb, there is a certain size depending on how many fish you want in it. But even just a half acre pond, even, or something small, that size, or maybe even smaller, you can stock it with fish and stuff. But what you do for the food is, so you start out, you stock it with minnows and stuff like that, let them get going, so they're reproducing, and you start adding other fish into it, and you end up with your ecosystem, where they're feeding and all that. And then a lot of times people will do a catch and release or whatever on some of that stuff. But perch, there's certain things that you add, that's food for you got the minnows, certain stuff eat the minnows, then the perch will eat the minnows, but then the bass will eat the perch, so you have a revolving system there. And I've seen, actually, I think I've even seen some on YouTube, but the old water systems that's a lot around a lot of farmhouses and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people actually put an aerator down there and have fish in those even. And those ain't always super big,
So one thing I've always been kind of curious about, when you dig a pond, is there a certain depth you have to go to, or the soil composition, because some places will hold water and some places won't hold water. Does it?
Oh yeah. That's totally the knowing how to dig a pond, and whatever material that you have in your area, natural materials. So most usually there's a certain depth as you're digging that you're going to hit a certain layer of material, that will hold water. But if you break through that, then your pond's more likely going to, start leaking water. And most usually you try to pick a spot, like even here up on top of the ridges, you can still get a good pond and hold water, but you want to make sure, it's helpful to make sure there's drainage going into it, for just your natural rainwater
Yeah.
and all that. But if you're going to have fish and something, the main thing that you got to realize is the freezing level on your water, because they have to, be deep enough, that you don't end up with frozen fish.
So, like, what's the average depth that you guys do down there? And I'm going to have a question after this.
Oh, well, so most usually you start out, when you start doing it, you always, for livestock or even anything, you most usually want when you get through, it's bowl shaped. All right.
Mhm.
So animals can't like break a leg going down in it, because as your pond goes up or down, you always want a nice, say like 3-to-1 type slope or whatever. And as far as the depth goes, it depends on the place. Like I said, the soil around it. Like where I am, it's one thing, but then I just go, down there towards Sergeant Joe down in Arkansas, and it might be, a lot more black dirt down there. It'll be a lot easier to hold a pond, to hold the water there, because there's hills and stuff. There's a little more farmland in some of those areas, and so it kind of just depends on the landscape and the soil. But
Actually, yeah, that's cool that you ended there, because my next question is about the soil up here. When they go in, we got great topsoil, but after that we hit a lot of clay, and so there's like no problem. There's like not adding a liner. It's pretty easy to go in that way. So I guess it's a twofold question. One, what kind of soil type do you have there? And then the other one is the Red River anywhere nearby? And is that something that you get to like see or do whatever? I don't know how far over to you it goes.
For me, the river's not. I mean, like we're like my house is 450 foot above the lake. So I mean, we're pretty, high up on these ridges. Like where I live. But we have here in the mountains. We have a lot of rock, a lot of caves. Sometimes a ridge, no matter what you do, just won't hold water, because more than likely there's a cave underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're real careful, sometimes you can get just that perfect little level or depth, but we have not very much topsoil at all. A lot of gravel, rock, but we have red clay. And red clay is wonderful for compacting. It packs down good, solid. It does hold water good, but if you get too far down, you hit what we call a hard pan, then you're more likely going to start leaking through that, that soil.
Our old house had clay, a lot of clay. Yeah, I hated it. Trying to dig a hole with my hand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you use a crowbar or a rock bar here. You don't even pull out a set of post hole diggers other than get the rocks out of the hole.
Wow. Man, I got to swing down that way. The reason I asked about Red River was because of the red clay. I was like, I don't know, 10, 12 years old. We were on our way to Texas and camped, like right up against it, and looking at it with my own eyes kind of thing. I thought I was in a far off land. It's totally trippy. And my brother and I, we wanted to go swim in it, and we didn't have bathing suits. So we went in our tidy whities, and those things held the Red River stain like for a year or two afterwards. It was crazy. Yep.
Say the Red River's clear down the southern part of Oklahoma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, even though, like, say, for instance, Gum Snob, He's not that far from me or Sergeant Joe, but you got totally different soil over there, and like their little creeks and stuff like that. There's a fish that we catch here. It's in a carp family. They're called sucker fish. Well, here when they come in the creeks to spawn, you can actually gig them, snag them with treble hooks or whatever. Great eating fish. But our rivers are really clear, and all that. Well, friends from Oklahoma or even Kansas sometimes, they're like, man, I can't believe you eat them suckers, because there in certain places, their rivers are, what's the word, like clay, white mud, or like I don't know. So they say the fish don't taste as good there as they do, like, naturally where it's clear water.
Mm.
We definitely don't eat the carp here, but
Yeah.
Gary, why is that?
Tradition.
I was always told they're difficult to clean because they have so many bones,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
you almost have
And
to
their
pressure
scales.
cook them.
Their scales are gross
Yeah.
compared to like a regular sporting fish. There's a reason sporting fish
Sure.
are, what do they call it? Introduced so many places because it's easy to clean a bass.
Now, those
They're
who
fun to
do
fight.
eat them say that they're quite good, but it's just way too much trouble for most people to mess with.
Because I had an employee. She was on I don't know if to call it a creek or move it up to stream, maybe kind of thing, and she would put out lines. And I don't know what you call the ones where it's like a line from shore to shore and then hooks hanging off of it. I'm not sure what that's called, but she had like incredible success. And one of the things that she did, and this is how I learned it, was she would have a diversion of the water from the stream where she would like keep the fish in it for a couple of days, and there was like water added kind of thing, and it like flushed them out from having a lot of that murky, the bottom feeder, the shit taste in them, sort of deal. And she would bring in fillets, and it's not like a white fish that tastes real good, sort of thing, but it's definitely a food source that I'm surprised that people avoid just because of the cleaning. Ripping scales off of something's not that big a deal. Taking a head off something's not that big a deal. Filleting something shouldn't be that big of a deal.
Well,
I
when
mean,
you're used to catfish, where all you have to do is skin them,
yeah, I get it. And they have a big, big rib, the ribs that are wide.
Have you
come out like that.
Have you ate a northern before? Have you
Yeah.
skinned a northern, I should say?
No.
When you skin them, they've got, how normally on a fish you think of the meat and the ribs, right? Well, on a northern, they've got a bone that comes from the rib cage out into the meat. So if you do a normal fillet like everyone does on every other kind of fish, then you cut that bone. It's this little fish bone, so you don't even know it's there. So now when you're eating it, there's this fish bone out of nowhere, right in the chunk of the meat. So the only way to really cut a northern up good, people that know what they're doing, is they'll, be able to feel it with their knife. They'll just touch those bones, then they'll kind of pull the meat, let those bones all kind of come out, stay with the fish carcass, and then go back in. And, everybody's got their own technique, but I grew up with people who knew what they were doing. So I always ate pike. That was awesome. But then even with myself, when I'm a dumbass trying to do it myself, like every rib has one of these bones. So it's not like, 6 bones. There's like 60 of them. So you can real easily miss a few and cut them into your meat. So that's why people don't like eating pike. And they also don't fight that good. But like I say, I think that's why sport fish are everywhere, is because people are like, the fish here suck, so let's put bass in because we like fighting. We like catching them, and they taste good. They're easy to clean. Same with catfish, right? Because
I get it. That's
yank the skin off and you eat them, or you just leave it on there and you eat them.
Well,
so Hillbilly. When you were building the kind of biome, of the ponds, I was curious about the kind of smaller fish. Like up here, it would probably be crappie, bluegill, pumpkin seed. What fish of that size do you stock down there?
well, it'd be along the same thing, except
Okay.
for they need minnows and certain stuff to eat for them to eat. So and and a lot of people, like just in a cow pond, what we would call just a cow pond or whatever, A lot of people stock those with minnows, and then when it's like spring fishing season, if you're fishing with minnows, you got their seine net, and you just seine those minnows out of there, and fill up your bucket and you take them fishing, because they constantly will reproduce in there, and most usually fish help keep, a lot of fish help keep the water cleaner. But I was going to comment on
mosquito
G-Web
larvae.
talking about all those bones and the meat. I don't know what size those are, but around here, the suckers, they're the same way like the carp. There's, so many small bones in every bit of that fillet that, like, it's, there's a lot of meat there, but it's all got bones in it. So how we've learned to deal with that is once you cut the fillet off, we scale them. So get all the scales off and we cut the fillet. We leave the skin on, and then we do what we call a score. So real close together, we cut all the way through the meat and the little bones right down to the skin without cutting the skin. Like you might get a few cuts on it. So anyway, when you get that done, you have a fillet, and then, if they're too big, of course you can cut that fillet in half or whatever. But then we deep fry them. We'll take our fish cookers. A lot of times we'll just right there at the creek or the river, and so we just literally put, cornmeal and flour and salt and pepper, in baggies, and then you throw that fillet in there. You shake it all up just like a shake and bake chicken, and then you cook that. You want to keep your grease right at between 350 and 375, because it'll burn at 400, and 350 it don't cook hot enough, and all those bones will cook right out of that. And what it ends up looking like, it looks like this big honking like curly Q type deal when it's done, but they taste wonderful.
Yeah, around here, a lot of people will chunk them. And pin bones are, Jesus, those things are a pain in the ass. And G-Webs, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I can remember piercing the roof of my mouth when I was a kid, because I would dig in too fast or whatever. But yeah, there's a restaurant here that they specialized in carp and catfish. It's called Joe Tess. And so eating there was cool. And when you said kind of a curly Q, after your cornmeal and frying them, exactly into my head. And man, I want some in my stomach right now. I'm hungry.
Yeah, see, Michael Dunn talked about walleye out there. Now, walleye and crappie is always a good treat, man.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like walleye. I'm just prejudiced.
I've never
I
had
always
it.
wanted to fish for
White
other things.
bass around here too.
I would always just fish for trout and bluegill, and then sometimes you'd catch either bass or catfish or yellow perch.
Oh, wow, man. How close are you to the headwaters of whatever it is that you're fishing?
Well, this is just out of the mill ponds.
Oh, okay. I was thinking running water. My bad.
My
So-
favorite to fish for is bluegill. I like the way they fight when you reel them in,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's like a keel moving through the water every time they turn their body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you fished for crappie?
Yeah.
No, we don't have any down here.
The reason I was saying that is because crappie's a lot like bluegills, except they're only bigger. They just
Yeah.
look basically kind of like an oversized crappie. And so you get that awesome fight also with them. And, they're fun to catch and really good to eat.
The biggest bluegill I've caught was probably the size of my hand. So they're not the big dinner plate size.
Yeah.
And
Well, I
then you
never
only,
hardly catch those either. When I was a kid, we'd catch them that size and smaller.
yeah. And then when you fillet them, you get this, silver dollar size fillet off them.
Yeah, it's like a little
Yeah.
bit more than a bite size sometimes. But
Yeah.
that's what we'd fish for all morning. Well, in the right before lunch, we'd switch over and start fishing for those, because you can catch a ton of them. And then yeah, just frying a ton of that stuff up. I've ate
And they're
billion-
really aggressive for their size.
Yeah.
pretty fun to
I've
catch.
thrown in just a red hook, and they'll go after the hook.
Yeah.
I can remember the first bluegill that I caught that I could keep, and I fried up in the pan all by its little solo selves. It was the sweetest taste ever, though. That payoff at the end of the day.
For me, there's something kind of magical about fishing. When I'll fish off the riverbank, off the side of the pond. I'm rarely ever in a boat, but you've got your line out there, and most of it is just going out early and sitting by myself, and it's peaceful. But sitting there, and then your line starts to move, and then the tip of your rod is moving, and you don't know what it is. You don't know what's pulling. And for me, there's just something about that.
Mhm.
It's gambling and hunting and bird watching and learning patience and discipline. It's everything.
Yeah,
If you like
You
to
s-
fight, actually, if you ever get a chance to do it, find a decent little creek or river or whatever. And it don't matter if you're, catching, if trout, bass, whatever. But when you're taking your waders, or if it's nice enough, you can wade out and, throw down creek or down the creek or whatever. It's always some fun fishing and, some great fighting, against the current and all that. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, doing short rod fishing from inner tubes in rivers where I grew up. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Standing in them or sitting in them?
Well, depending on where you were and what the water level was, but mostly sitting. Just sitting kind of, and sometimes just tether out when it was strong, when it's strong enough that you didn't have to kind of either go super slow or paddle along. I don't think our river levels rise or fall in any more dramatic fashion than anywhere else, kind of thing. But one of the reasons I don't know anybody who does that anymore, at least to catch and do anything other than release, because of the degree of ag chemicals that are in everything. They just leach every rain more and more.
You wouldn't.
And there have been a lot of species. No, don't eat them. Oh, and not don't eat them. I mean, you can, but gross.
Yeah,
And who the hell knows which?
Yeah. It's gross.
Yeah. So it's not the kind of thing where somebody can, there are ones that exist, but they're the ones feeding the rivers, and it's like, it depends on the field. It depends on the terrain.
In the early 90s, I worked for the Forest Service. I went up to the Tetons in essentially the Continental Divide in Wyoming, where, Continental Divide, where the rain comes down and falls on one side or the other. So walking up into the wilderness up there, packing in and doing, what do they call that? Rainfall monitoring, I guess. So anyway, long story short, middle of Wyoming, actually just south of Yellowstone, Wyoming. So essentially middle of Wyoming, middle of the Continental Divide. The water in the glacier ponds at the 40 miles up and 40 miles of walking. There's no vehicles up there. I don't even know if they fly airplanes over them. Anyway, long story short, the rain out of Salt Lake City back in the 90s had acid rained the shit out of that water. So there was no virgin water in all of Wyoming going all the way down. So every cow, everything that was drinking out of that, because, that whole side of Wyoming is $5 an acre cow, cows all over the sides of those hills. So, they're growing up with that acid rainwater, and, that's all just because of the size of Salt Lake City and the smokestacks and, just normal doing business in a big city. All that rain's got to come down somewhere. So it comes down in the, middle of nowhere glaciers. So there isn't any pure water anymore. There might be somewhere in the top of Alaska or some shit, right?
In the game rule booklet for Washington State, for fish, they give recommendations for how much fish is safe to eat. Basically, don't eat more than this much of this fish or that fish.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Where's that from?
Washington. The state puts out their their game rules.
State. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, really? And is it like dozen or is it like 60?
Oh, it's like 6.
Oh shit.
3
Oh wow. Wow, that's crazy.
in a given time. It's been a while since I've looked
Oh,
at
that's
it.
not per year. Okay.
No.
Okay. I've
I
seen
don't
the
think it
things
was.
from a place. Where's a Monterey? Someplace there's a Monterey that's some kind of a sea. Just
California?
research. Yeah, like maybe there's some kind of sea research there, and they do a thing like that's similar, but like the other side, like the impact of the fish, like which fish are good to eat and which ones are not a good idea to eat for lots of different reasons. But I thought you were getting at that angle from like, they have too much. Well, essentially, that's what you're saying. They have too much metals in them, or they have too much filth in them. Yeah. Well, that's something that
we just kind of turned, pardon G-Webs, this kind of turned into a bummer talking about what we can't do and like losing species and all this other stuff. Like, can we gear shift? No, or divert? No? All right.
The world's a filter, so that stuff gets filtered out. If it's filthy right now, it is not as filthy as it was in the 1930s. Watch No Country for Old Men. Is that movie? It starts out with the coal mines and stuff. Like, that's a cool movie to show you how filthy it was back in the 30s.
Or is that There Will Be Blood?
Is that the one? Oh, yeah. There Will Be Blood, where the guy starts off like building his own gold mine or coal mine or whatever or gold oil mine, I guess. Oil well.
I think so. I didn't see it, but No Country for Old Men is the drug money.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm thinking wrong. There's similar names. But anyway, I'm just saying, like, we think that we're filthy now because everybody wants to rag on us. The communists want to rag on us for being filthy as capitalists. But come on, think of the 30s. Like, when nobody gave a shit and nobody literally gave a shit. Like, they all thought, the world is ours to conquer. Like, pretty much everyone thought that. So,
well, even you look at the 70s when, the kind of conservation really kind of
just
kicked
started.
off.
Yeah.
You had the burning rivers and that aren't
well,
burning
let's
anymore.
not say that, because what's his face, when they started Yellowstone, that's when conservation started off.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, just a recent example, I guess.
No, you're right. Like when the new wave or whatever. But yeah, even then it was filthy. And there wasn't child labor, but there was still like kids dying of drinking water and horrible shit.
Well, shit, you still have like Flint, Michigan.
Oh my God, yeah. Love Canal and a whole bunch of others. That's gonna go super bumming though, dude.
No, it's it happened, and hopefully learn from it.
Yeah.
But,
the world is big and it is a giant filter. So time and other things can cancel stuff out. But I'm not diminishing the people that got hurt and the scale of these things. But it is a big ass planet. We were just talking about Woolaroc a while ago. There, if you go, that's going up from Tulsa going to the west. If you go up from Tulsa going to the east towards Gizzard, then you get to where they pulled all the lead out of the ground for, I think, all of World War I and a good chunk of World War II. So it's just giant holes where lead was. And that's completely, what do they call that when it's completely environmental hazard and you can drive through it, but you're not allowed to really stop there and fart around because you'd die. Super fund or whatever. It's like there's a name for that when they're, massive environmental damage. That whole region is like that, like a whole city. No, not city, but a whole town.
I think Superfund is the right term. Yeah.
That reminds me, Gary, that something that Rich White said about the revolvers in World War I. He's incorrect, because the U.S., I think the Air Force still, there were certain people that were issued revolvers up through like the 80s.
Dude, I'd done armorers in U.S. Army armorers courses on the revolver. We still had the revolver in the mid 80s.
Yeah.
So it was only for guards though. It was like prison guards or some dumb thing. It was like 8 people in a base might have them, or 8 people in a fort might have them. But yeah, there was people that couldn't have a semi-auto.
Yeah, it was. I can't remember if it was pilots or something like that because I know it was the
Yeah,
what I had
pilots
heard.
carry 'em.
It was with the Air Force, but so you can tell Rich Wright he was wrong.
Again.
Yeah, he's been told that before.
Eric
There's
and
like
509s out there.
like different crew members, like you mentioned on airplanes. I'm also thinking about tanks and that sort of stuff. Issued a sidearm, and it wouldn't be necessarily a 1911 kind of deal. Sort of makes sense.
I don't know if it was necessarily like you don't deserve a 1911 as much as we have all these 38s
Yeah.
and we don't have 1911s for everybody yet. So you're getting them first,
get
and
it.
you're getting them next, and you're getting them next. And now we got enough, so everybody gets them. It was more, I think, that kind of a thing.
I get it.
And the people that never needed them or only needed them for inspections, they just had revolvers forever. And then there was
Yeah, 'cause-
probably a certain amount of people that were like, I like my revolver, so make me last. You know, put us at the end of the line. Leave us at the end of the line. You know, probably position themselves because they wanted them for some reason.
I think Dad was issued a revolver in World War II, but he was tank crew, so he wasn't exactly, most of his combat was inside an armored vehicle. So, but they'd have the infantry that would march along with them.
Interesting.
Well, nobody in that infantry got a 1911. The only officers and shit would get 1911s. Like only people, certain people get
I'm
pistols.
sure they had rifles mostly anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one thing that's kind of interesting is the wonderful resource YouTube is. You can go back and see the training films from World War II for
Mhm.
1911 and for rifles. And there's even earlier the military army training films and stuff. It's really
where they
interesting
taught
to
them to
see.
shoot one-handed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love the narrators of those things, and the way and the scripting, the writing for them. Yeah, I love those. Good one.
Guns
So
and
when
Water.
did sorry, Guns and Water?
You were going to ask about
so
the
when-
bracket. Was there going to be asked about the bracket tonight?
No, the bracket when I had it with me when I went to the range, and when I shot the 45, the percussion from the 45 cracked the bracket. So I need to get it mended.
If you'd have been shooting 9mm, it would have been just fine, and we'd be doing a bracket now.
Well, the bracket might have laughed itself to death, but
So when did the United States stop using horses in warfare? I know in World War II, I have a relative that they use mules, but when did they stop having like cavalry, like mounted troops? Because that's another one that I pictured getting a revolver. It was hard for me to, I guess probably because it was hard for me to picture in 1911 on a guy mounted on a horse. But when did they stop using horses?
well,
I think
Spanish-American War.
I think it may have been Vietnam. Feels like some of that. Because
The last time we used them modern was when the Green Berets went into that first raids in when after 9/11, and they remember just hearing somebody recently talk about that it was the first time since World War II, I believe, because we didn't really use them and we didn't take them with to like Korea or Nam. We didn't have we had armored cavalry by then, but it says 1939 on the internet. Most cavalry units were disbanded after 1939. But the thing is, I will bet you we still have horses today for parades and shit. Like, I'm sure we still have horses.
Well, I'm reading something right now that says the U.S. Army Special Forces used horses in battle during the 2001 invasion of Afghanistan.
Yeah, I just said, that's what I said. Like, when they were just talking about that the other day, and they said it was the first time in like 35 years that they had used a horse in battle. So I think it was like 42 or something when we had our mounted cavalry.
Yeah, there is a movie, and it's supposed to be kind of long facts or whatever, but I cannot remember the name of it. But basically what you're talking about there, special forces, the movies about them where they actually rode horses, in that battle and some of those battles and stuff. It's a great movie. I wish I can remember the name of it.
Horse Soldiers, like a couple of
Yeah,
years.
Horse Soldiers. That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll dig that out.
Wonderful movie.
Cool. Thanks for the repo.
You bet you, buddy.
Oh, are we out of stuff?
I've got
Oh,
the deck here if you want to keep going with fun challenge.
Well, I probably won't go too much longer. Anyway.
okay. Well, then I'd like to put this up. It's just a box. That's all it is. But you see what it says. These are potentially going to become illegal in Omaha. So maybe steer back towards firearms and rights for a second, just to say.
Yeah.
I mentioned this on Hillbilly's show as well. They're also working on. It's been introduced just this last week, having bans in different public places, and that included sidewalks and parking lots, and not just those that are attached to any sort of government or city-owned properties. So my mind has been going not mile a minute. It's a little bit slower than that, but trying to come up with ways to help people understand. I mean, I don't think I'm not going to be able to mobilize a hell of a lot of people to suddenly show up, though it's within the realm of potential. It's not, I just know it's not, that kind of thing's not going to happen. So, providing what testimony I will give, I'm still working on examples of this, because I mean, I'm perplexed. I mean, how do you get people who desire to have you not able to carry in public on a sidewalk? How do you get them to come around? What do you say? It's so obtuse and bizarre to me.
Yeah.
And another thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was just gonna say it's asinine.
Yeah, absative. And another part of that last week's meeting was there was a mayoral mandate, and the council took a vote of confidence in it. And I had never heard of such a thing. So essentially, what I think that they're doing is they're trying to build support underneath these new ordinances by drawing in that. So it's got not just mayoral backing, it also has police backing. And that's left over from the fight that we had, or the challenge we had with LB 77. That's our constitutional carry. So we got the privilege. Oh my God, shut up, dude. It's not a privilege, it's a right. So we got constitutional carry this year, and wham, before the state legislature's done for the year, it was at the conclusion of that, and now the city gets to pop up and do their bullshit in the off season. And it's so frustrating, guys. It's so frustrating.
I can imagine, man. That's terrible.
Well, and I'm not trying to go, from one downer to another, but I definitely wanted to,
No, that's something important to know about.
And I don't know, because I don't know if they've set what the penalties for these things would be. I don't know the process for that, because I've never paid attention to something being made illegal. The only thing that has come close were some of the issues around tobacco that I spent some time trying to dedicate some energy to. But I'm holding this damn box that I showed you, and what if this shit turns into a felony? Because I haven't put a number on the side. When in other states and in other gun rights fights, people have said felon overnight, I have hated that phrase, hated it, because of the way it's been flogged. And I think it's lost some of its value. And perhaps I was just skewed in the way I was thinking about those things. And now that it's come home to roost, so to speak, that's where suddenly I'm understanding something that I was down on before. And it's giving me a greater perspective on what does go on in other places, in Washington.
So
It's been abstract. Pause, G, and I'll finish right here. And that kind of stuff it's existed in an abstract in my mind because I understood the one deprivation very clearly, and that was for open carry. And after constitutional carry, I thought my worries were over. Back to you, G. Sorry about that.
all right, so now think about it from a different perspective where you said you understand you had a position on this when other people would talk about it and from afar. And now what's happening is you're sitting there and now the barrel of the gun, to use that pun, is pointed at you. Well, it's not as though the gun got bigger. It's not as though anything else changed. It's just that now it's pointed at you, but you can potentially conceptualize that it's still the same circumstances. Yes, they could technically, but they're not going door to door with stormtroopers rummaging through people's belongings looking for boxes of unserialized things. It's what it is with everybody else. It's a frustrating thing that has to go through the courts. It has to be challenged, and in the process, you either have to decide to make a course of action based on your opinions of what's going to go on. But again, it's it might influence what they're going to sell or whatever. But you mentioned that you hadn't dealt with this before. You've lived through it before because we had the assault weapons ban, and for a minute there, for 10 years there, I should say, for a fucking decade, for 10 years, a whole bunch of us, and at the beginning of that, we didn't know. So at the beginning of that, on September 27th of 1994, everybody had to go, is this gun still legal? Some people were buying guns and, depending on where they were, there might've been a background waiting thing. So, can I pick that gun up from the gun shop? The gun shop was thinking, can I transfer this gun? Other people were thinking, oh my goodness, did I buy enough before this happened? Halfway through the decade, halfway through that ban, everybody was chill. Everybody kind of figured out that there were no Gestapos going door to door, knocking in, looking for, microscopic evidence on your guns of, if they were pre-ban or whatever. And by the end of it, the law was obviously fake. It was, in 95, everyone got voted out. So there was consequences to their dumbass knee-jerk reactions and their overreach. And by 2004, it all just disappeared. So I'm just saying, even if you weren't paying attention, that was sort of how it went down for a decade there. And we did live for that first years or two wondering what the hell's going on. Like, our guns on some list, like, what are they coming? And that was the whole country. So we all kind of dealt with that to some level before. And you do have whole states that are dealing with it now. Think of Oregon, right? In Massachusetts is imminent. So you're a city, and even Nebraska don't have the resources to send in people to go, you know what I mean? But that's all I'm saying. So it does seem shitty when the barrel's pointing at you, but it's the same barrel threatening that ain't doing shit. I don't want to say it like that, but it's a threatening barrel, but it's a misunderstood one, and it's a knee-jerk reaction to something else completely. They're not actually caring about you and your unserialized gun. They just are using that as the thing of the week to not talk about fentanyl and to not talk about the border and to not talk about this or that and the other thing. So I think that I don't think you're going to be, the people of Omaha are going to be a example to the country, and they're going to seek out what's the word, like go after everybody in the city as soon as the law goes through. If anything, it's just now an opportunity for whoever, I don't know who the entity is, because as much as I do, it's the players, but an entity to come along and now challenge the, what is it called, state preemption?
Preemption.
The state preemption issue right here.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where I kind of wish it would just go away, but I do get that one of the next stages would be the challenge in the courts. And I can't remember which dude has already pointed out that it goes against our, it's against our state constitution. It's against what already exists, and preemption just exists right now because people tolerate it. As I've come to understand, it's just because it's there and no one's made it go away.
You have preemption, and this is challenging the preemption, and no one is bringing that up yet, is all.
Yeah.
But you have state preemption in Nebraska, so this is unreasonable. It's like unlawful for them to do this. It's just that if nobody complains, then they just go ahead and do it unlawfully. So here's the other thing I was going to say is, obviously, the people who get paid to do lawsuits and the people who take monthly or yearly money from the community and push it all towards lawsuits and briefs and summaries of lawsuits and all of lawyers and lawsuits, they're going to act like, oh, our only recourse here is a lawsuit. But there is another recourse, and I was going to bring that up before, but it's kind of on both ends. One, to say this happened in Omaha and whatever in Nebraska because people in Omaha were susceptible to the inaccurate suggestion of what this would do and what this meant, right? Like they only did this because they duped a bunch of people that aren't paying attention and they thought this sounded like a good idea. So the way that you would have inoculated the town or the city or the state from that was with awareness, right? An ideal situation, everyone in Nebraska would have been like, come on, as if serialized guns. Are you even talking about this? Or are you talking about guns with the serial number scratched off, right? They would have challenged them if they had awareness. So there was that, right? Like in an ideal world, everyone in Nebraska would have already known. So that's what I'm getting at is we'd have the soapbox. We have the individuals, and you were already talking, I think, about, I don't know if we talked about that on air, off air, but whatever, you've talked about some ideas of what you're going to do or have ideas of what can be done as an individual to create more awareness so that you're less susceptible to the idea of like, here's a quick fix. Let's demonize guns and gun owners, and let's act like guns are a vice or guns are somehow, responsible for the violence, and this is somehow acceptable, and we're not going to talk about the other issues in the state or the city. So anyway, you could create that awareness so that, one, it doesn't get any tighter, but then two, at the first opportunity, somebody can run to remove this unnecessary strap that makes you all look goofy. And, that can be done. I don't know what it's like in your community and the culture and the society there, but if let's say whatever the society leaders are, religious, civic, on social, or maybe, a restaurant in town or something, like whoever it is that's got the public ear, or maybe people that have the public ears in different places. It could be as simple as them all understanding that, hey, we look like a bunch of chumps to the rest of the state and honest to a bunch of people in the rest of the country because we were duped into thinking that criminals who scrape the serial numbers off of guns are the same as our kids with a 3D printer. And now we've just somehow marginalized all our kids with our 3D printers, and our kids who are going to be learning how to do, amazing things with 3D printers. Why would we want to put them behind everybody else on the planet, by going backwards in technology? It's just ridiculous. So once those people, those key dozen people, say to their audiences, their constituents, their, people that they talk to, hey, this is ridiculous, then boom, it's gone. You know what I mean? Like, so it could be that simple. And one, you don't have national level organizations that are interested or able to do something like that. So they never bring that up. And I'm not saying that's easy or it's like been done before, but I'm just using that as an example of there's other ways to accomplish the goal here, which is to wake the city up that what they're doing is a red herring. It's an easy fix that was sold to them, just like if they bought a monorail. Oh, you know how we'll fix the economy? Let's get a monorail. Like, and then the guy goes on to the next town to sell the monorail. Well, they just got sold a bill of goods.
Anyway. Straight. one of the strange, like you ended on monorail, and actually for the last 3 decades, there's been this thing where they were going to put in a separate rail line between Omaha and Lincoln, the capital. It just continues not to go through. So, like one of the parts, and thank you, G. I appreciate your observations. One of the things that's also that I can't figure out how to crack into is that the police union, even not just the chief, but the union itself, is in support of this. And I can't, I don't get it. Again, it's a throwing my hands up. I don't get it. What the reason that's offered every time I read the quote, it's damn near the same, which is the safety of officers. So against the whole city, the rights of everyone in the city versus the preference of police, because they don't want to have the threat potentially increased. Like that's just nuts to me. It's like people have made references to the people in LEO that they've talked to where, yes, we appreciate you carrying your gun even. John's Barbecue has stories. I've had that happen to me where it's just like, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you do. So all of it, a lot of us are having the experience where it's being reinforced that law enforcement does want us to be, an armed populace. And then there's like these, I don't know what the bonus is for them. I don't get it other than this perception that the threat level will be reduced. I just don't get it. I don't know how to crack it, man. And I'm not asking you to give me, I don't know what I'm asking for here. Maybe it's just to blow off some steam about it, shake my fist in the air a little bit.
Well, on that note, DJ, is there anything you'd like to plug?
Yes. It's a little different than my usual one. I am proud to be a Nebraskan, and I am proud of my state's constitution. And Article 1, Section 1, the top of the key of our Statement of Rights reads as such: all persons are by nature free and independent and have certain inherent and inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the right to keep and bear arms for security or defense of self, family, home, and others, and for lawful common defense, hunting, recreational use, and all other lawful purposes, and such rights shall not be denied or infringed by the state or any subdivision thereof. To secure these rights and the protection of property, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Part of that you've heard before. We thought it was good enough to include with ours, as well as the fourth thing beyond life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Nebraskans are supposed to be guaranteed the ability to defend themselves. Everybody, be safe, have fun, carry your guns, and rock. I'm out.
Hillbilly, plug away.
Yeah, buddy. Thanks a lot for having me on here. Enjoyed it. DJ, man, good luck with you guys on that, man. Trying to do whatever you can do to help. Just looking for another good week of watching content on YouTube, family and, this YouTube family. I just really appreciate it and love to be a part of it and just making some videos. And I appreciate you having me on, guys. Thank you.
Gary, how about you?
As far as DJ's concerned, the best advice I can offer is, when things aren't right, when laws are not just, a good man speaks up and says, no, this cannot stand. And even if you stand alone, you still stand. And I don't think you'd be standing alone. So keep up the fight. As for the show, thank you very much for the invite. It's been interesting. We've been fishing. We've been defending ourselves. We've done a little bit of everything tonight. So, very interesting show. Thank you for letting me be involved.
And say I'm not going to play the promo just because I'm still working off the hotspot, but gearwebsites.com, a place for all your 2A related t-shirts, patches, stickers, posters, books, web design, web consulting, logo design and consulting. You name it, he can design it and consult it. Gearwebsites.com. Anything you'd like to plug, G-Webs?
Thanks for that each week. Appreciate it. I don't know. Why don't we talk about those comment periods again? It's worth everybody's time to not just comment. It's worthy. It's just like voting or whatever. But just like voting, you can vote. But additionally, you can talk about voting, and you can encourage people to vote, and you can facilitate others voting. So with the comment period, it's as easy as bringing it up when you're in a conversation with others, or maybe watching a show and they say any other topics, bring it up. And when it becomes normalized, more of us are more comfortable with those comment periods. I know some of us who are listening to this or might be listening to this have been through more than one comment period, and they all have had their own level of I don't know, is that called interest, or the community has taken interest in some of them more than others? Is that the way to say it? And this one, it's definitely unique, but I'll just say, it's kind of a plug for that concept that we have these pieces of our government that are ours to manipulate or use or take part of, just like voting. And we can watch them and ignore them and just be aware of them and watch, because the other side is wailing on it. 200 and something thousand comments from the other side. And we're just either not paying attention or watching them just kind of abuse the system or use the system, depending on how you want to look at it. So anyway, I think we all could play a part of, just awareness and understanding about that stuff. And that's all I'll say. Thanks.
And DJ dropped links for the two that we talked about earlier. One is the who needs to get the FFL, and they're kind of appears to be looking to expand it to include a lot of people that are not businesses. And then the other is black powder storage, having to report what you have to the fire department. So go over there. It's really easy to do, and I think it's important to do. Have your voice heard. And so thank you to everybody that was out there in the chat, chatting it up. And those who might have been out there and didn't say anything, I appreciate you too. Don't be afraid to speak up. If you watch this in replay, leave a comment. Anything we talked about, agree with, disagree with, think we left out, let me know. I always read the comments, and they are always appreciated. And so next week will be a mouse party. And don't forget everybody except Arizona, set your clocks back. Other than that, when I play the outro, I probably won't be able to see it. This is for the panelists. So I'll just let it play for a little, however long, and then end the stream. So I won't know where it's at or what's going on. But let me, there we go. So I hope everybody has a good rest of the night and go do something good.
You still here? It's over. Go home.